Hi there, Joannika from Fullview Solutions, Matrix 24 Gold Partner in South Africa. Quite often when we implement new systems, we see challenges on getting it going and getting everybody on board. And for that reason, I've approached Anneleen, who is the expert on helping us to manage change. So I'm going to get Anneleen to introduce herself to you, and then we can just have a conversation on the challenges of change. Anneleen.
Thanks, Joannika. Yes, I'm Anneleen van Wyk. I'm the owner of Kindle Coaching. We specialize in change management coaching and key account management. It's very, very common for people to resist change. I think maybe, Joannika, we should start with why people resist change. Why, even if it's good change, why do they still resist it? And I think the psychology is feeling that you're going to lose something that you are familiar with and embracing the unknown. So it's that no man's land where you don't want to let go, and you're scared that you're going to end up and it's not as great as what you thought. So it's a lot to do with control and with habit. And sometimes, you just have to work with the hearts and the minds. So it's not, I don't want to say it's not rocket science, but sometimes we have to dumb it down and say we're dealing with people and we have to persuade and influence, and then change happens. But it is a process. It's not an event.
Yeah, it's a bit of a psychological process also.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think my role as the change management coach is a third-party thinking partner. So I don't have skin in the game. I'm not part of the players on the chessboard, and I'm also not the software provider. So I'm a complete objective party, and I sometimes have to be the priest listening to everything and the MI5 agent keeping all the secrets. But this is how you influence and you get to the bottom of why people are so scared of the change.
So if I can start with a comment in, we've done 100+ Matrix implementations. So the challenges that I get or that we experience is it's easy for a company to say, yes, we need a CRM or a contact or project management system like Matrix. But the harder question is, why do we need it and what's our strategy? And that's I think where we sometimes need to guide customers, not only us as Fullview doing Matrix, but any software provider. So what's the right questions to ask before you start shopping for a new solution? So I don't know, what's your guidance on that?
I'm going to quickly share my screen with you, and first I'm going to talk about our methodology that we use, because it's a process. So change is a process, it's not an event. You don't just arrive there, it's a process, and it's a painful process. It's not an easy process. I've never been through a successful change where it wasn't tears and pain and fighting and infighting, etc., etc. So it's not going to be easy. But if you follow specific methodology, it's easy to see where you can go wrong and where you can go right. So I will start with the first strategy for change and the type of questions that you have to ask. The first question you have to ask is why? Is this something that someone thinks will solve their problems? And they have selfishly thought like, this is what I need because I want to use it for my own gain, or I want to punish the sales team because they're not doing X, Y, Z, and I want to track them, and I want to implement, some punitive structure. Is that the reason? That's not strategy. Okay, so that is a subjective agenda that someone is driving. Is it a conversation that happened around the barbecue where someone said, have you heard this system can do blah, blah, blah? And then you think it's the greatest and the latest, I have to have it. But you haven't thought about the resistance to change, how to bring it into the business. So if you ask the right questions from the start, then you will see that successful change is a multi-layered approach. And you have to be committed for the long haul and take full ownership. And that means money. So my first thing when we talk about software is that you need to ask the right questions about, number one, the supplier. is this supplier right for you? Or are you trying to get a Rolls Royce, but you only willing to pay, for the little Beetle? Like, what are you trying to do? So is this the right supplier for you? Is this a fly-by-night? Is this someone that's not going to be a business fit for you? That would be my first question. Then the second question that people don't ask is what type of service model is it? Specifically in South Africa, our culture is not to talk about money. So we don't enjoy in the sales process to talk about money. We talk about everything else. And we just want to get this out. But in the end, it's like, blah, blah, blah. So there we don't see, will this system grow with my business? If my business grows, is it the right fit for me? Will it grow with me? Or will I not be able to afford it in the next 3 months? Because I want everything, but my budget is XYZ. So is this a business model that can grow with my company as I grow? And can I exit? And can I upgrade? And who owns the data? And can I get regular trainings? And who does the maintenance? So it's all these specific questions that we have to ask, because people make assumptions specifically around software. Only when you ask the right questions can you go back to how do we now define the strategy for change? How are we going to implement this? And will this work for us? So to summarize, you start with your why, and you begin with the end in mind, and you take into account how much will this cost? Not just money, but time. Am I willing to send my team on regular training? Am I willing to invest in support? Am I willing to invest in changes? If I'm not, this might not be the right fit for me. And what do I want the system to do for me? So I would start with that.
Yeah, that's quite often why it's difficult for us. Not that we don't want to do it, to say what's the cost of implementing this. So there's a software cost and there's a this, but then there's all the other business components that we need to integrate, and that takes time and takes some planning, and where the customer needs to kind of like see the big picture. That's we often as referred to it as quite coincidentally that in the beginning when we said the company's name was Full View Solutions, we thought, yeah, it's great because we work with data. And the more we think about it, that's the main purpose. Because if I'm just here and I see the price, it's a good price and I buy it, but what's the big picture of what I want to do? And in terms of the questions you've listed there that you need to look at, those are the questions that we get from a lot of customers, and where we can easily give the answer in terms of what's the cost of your licensing, and that no, nothing's add-on. This is what you pay, because then the company can budget in terms of this is my big picture. I've got the software, I've got the training. How much time am I giving up for my staff to do training that I'm not going to be able to bill for? So yeah, so that's the tough questions to ask. That and like you said, if someone else asks it, it's okay to answer it. But if as a service provider, if I ask the questions, it looks like I've got a hidden agenda why I'm asking it. But we really want that long-term relationship with the customer. Else, why are we implementing this solution for you?
I think the question would make sense to the customer if they understand the whole process, where you want to start. Because often when I follow this methodology, often people just start with the tools and the skills, and they forget that you have to have readiness for change and that you have to create specific interventions to win hearts and minds, because people resist change. So you can't just start with give a person a tool or a skill. You have to go 2 steps back and 3 steps back in understanding, are we ready for this change? Not just financially, but also winning people's hearts and minds, and what perceptions do we have and what challenges will we face? And when we face those challenges, are we willing to spend and invest to overcome those challenges? Yeah. So it is not just buying a software solution. It's a long-term relationship that you have to invest in. And if you don't follow this process correctly, then people aren't on board and it becomes a grudge purchase, and you have wasted your money because you can't drag people kicking and screaming and say, if you don't use the system, you'll get fired. It doesn't work that way. So you have to win hearts and minds and assess what is the readiness for change.
Yeah, otherwise your risk for failure is so high, and then you've got zero ROI. You've actually wasted money.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And how many systems do we not know of where people invested millions just to throw it out 6-7 months down the line to say, exactly, this is not the fit for us, because they didn't do the homework up front and follow the process.
So talking about the homework, a challenge that we've seen in some of our customers is the team. Okay, so somebody wants Bitrix, wants a solution, somebody wants project management, and then, but internally for the customer, who do they need on a team to be able to make this change? Because it's a purchase, but it's a change to make it successful. Because where we've seen projects fail is if there's no chairperson or a champion or whatever for this implementation, because then person A wants this and person B wants this, but nobody has the authority to say, this is what we're going to do now. And then the project almost never goes live because we can't implement a specific solution. So what's the team players that you need?
Basically, change management coaching is threefold. So we need sponsorship. So we have to have a top-down approach. So you need to have a decision maker on your side, someone that can quickly implement, make decisions, approve budgets, approve change. You can't have a stumbling block there. And then you have to have the support from management, and you have to have the sustainability when through the process the people buy in. So two very important things need to happen. First of all, you have to have top-down ownership. So this is the strategy, this is why we're doing it. And then you have to identify change sponsors. And these are people on multiple levels in the organization. They are people that drive the change from within in little bite sizes. Because if you just do a top-down approach, then people resist it. You don't, and here we often see group thinking. So my group resisted. I'm in the sales team, and we stand as one person, and we just have group thinking. We reject it outright. And now we come up like a wall, and nobody is enforcing it top down, but also at the same time, nobody is identifying change sponsors within that group that can break the group thinking and that can say, how do we get change sponsors here? Let me sell it to you. Let me coach you through this. Because we have to create peer coaches. So it's the most successful when it's not enforced, when people feel like we created this ourselves. We made it our own. This is part of us. This is internally focused. The minute it's enforced, it will never work. It will be short-lived. I've only seen successful implementation where people embrace it and they forget how it was in the past. They forget how did we live without this? How did we ever exist without this tool? That's when you know it works. But it has to come from within. It cannot be a different approach. Often it goes wrong because the ownership is wrong and you don't know who to engage. So someone appoints a project manager, but that person is not empowered. That project manager is not empowered to make the right financial decisions or to engage the correct stakeholders. They don't have the clout. They don't have the right pool, so to speak. So, because Joannika, we have to remember that corporate is not for the faint-hearted in terms of the gladiator political game that people play. So this poor project manager might have the best intentions in the world to see this succeed, but is completely oblivious of all the other agendas going on in the background. That's why you have to have a multi-layered approach. And the second ingredient that I find super, super important, is over communication. You have to communicate the why the whole time. People get sick of it. Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Why is it going to work? Why is this the best thing that will happen to you? Why is it hard now, but will get better? Why? And communication fails if we have a one-size-fits-all approach. So if we want to follow a proper cycle of successful implementation, we have to show them the promised land, and we have to show them what's the end game. This is a process. It's not an event. In the next 6 to 8 months, you're going to end up here. This is what it's going to look like. And you have to communicate that vision. And it's not always easy for top management to communicate the right vision to the entire organization that will be affected by the change. That's why you have to have change sponsors within. They are your secret agents, reinforcing, speaking a language that the people can understand on the right level. So you can't expect the CEO to communicate the change to every level of the organization. There has to be engagement and continuous engagement. And remember also that not everyone works towards the same goal. People want to use the system for different reasons. So people want to use part of it. They don't want to use it at all. They want to throw out what they have completely overnight and just replace. So you have to know, is this mission impossible? So what now, then what? So ask the right questions from the start. And then I find that success breeds success. So the minute people see change, physically, visibly see it, they want to be part of it.
Yeah.
In sales, we always say the desire to gain has a motivational power of 1. But the fear of losing out has a motivational power of 2.5 times that. So if I see someone else is using something that works for them, man, I don't want to lose out. I want to get on that very quickly and use that. And that's why we have to use influence and persuasion. And it's not easy for everyone. No. It's an ongoing process.
We've seen actually the what you just mentioned now with one of our customers. They've got multiple divisions using different Bittrex instances, and at first it was just one of the businesses, and then a next, and then a next, because as they could see, because they've got about 6,000 leads that they manage at any given moment. So to manage that can get a bit hectic. So the moment they saw the value and the control and the speed of how things are happening, it was easier for them to say, okay, but if it works for you, it should work for me as well. And then they had more implementations going. And now they've got control on what's happening. And one comment on terms of the level, well, from up to down, we had a session with a customer about 2 weeks ago where we want to implement a system for them to, for the reps to all log all their visits with customers. And what's brilliant, what they did is when we had the second session in terms of management, in terms of how it should work, they had a rep on the call.
Yes.
So
yes.
Would this work for you? No, it wouldn't work at all. Otherwise, you build this whole thing and then you give it to them to use, and it doesn't make sense at all. So, and we all think this is a brilliant solution. We just changed our system internally in terms of how we're logging our tasks and reporting on it. And then we realized, okay, for management, this report is great. It shows us everything we want. But for the support agents, they need to see it from a different angle. It's the same information. Exactly what you mentioned earlier, we've got different needs. So yeah, to get the right team players and get the end user involved, I'm not saying they have to make the decisions, but you need the input.
You have to get them on board as change sponsors, and they have to give you the right feedback. So you shouldn't be scared to ask them for feedback, even if it's feedback that you don't want to hear. So you must be open to receive their input, because if you don't have them on board, the entire process will fail because they will just find workarounds because they won't make it their own. So you can't tell people what to do. They have to buy into it to say, this will work for us. And it's a brilliant example that you use with the rep, giving that feedback and to see how that journey carries on with that person. So now when that works for them, you break it down in smaller goals to say, okay, whoa, they are on board with this. Okay, let's go to the next level. What can we do now? Because it's that self-awareness. So you have to have a visible coaching roadmap so that people see, oh, I hated the change at first. I resisted it. And then I empowered myself to actually go to the next step. If we don't break it down in bite sizes, it's impossible to do. And if we don't break it down in SMART goals, where everything can be measured, every step of the way we can see, is this something that will work? Or is this just something that remains a dream or a vision or something in a KPI or a tick box or somewhere someone said something and it means nothing in real life? Or is it a SMART goal that we can go and measure? So we have to know, otherwise we can't embed and we have no idea what our return on investment is and how can we maximize that. So that's why, to go back to what I said in the beginning, it's not an event. It's not putting in a system. It's not an event. It's a process. And you have to sometimes go back, right back to the beginning. And this is where we come to the implementation plan. Why does that fail? Because when we need to go back to the implementation plan, we have to break down the goals again. And we have to say, okay, now we have to start from scratch to make sure that we're on track. And if there's resistance to change, how do we brainstorm the list of contingencies that we made? Because this is where you need input from individuals who have now used the system. So the implementation, people think if we have just put it in, it's going to work. It must be fantastic.
Magic.
But if the implementation plan is not realistic, it will always fail. And now I love this part in the implementation plan, because now we bring in Scrum Masters and we bring in project managers on steroids and we throw around buzzwords and we have to be agile, etc. But it means nothing to people. It means nothing to people in their life if they can't see that there's progress. They can't see the journey. It means absolutely nothing to them. So the implementation process needs to be mapped and tracked, and persuasion and influence is a continuous communication. So I love this quote from the Carnegie Institute of Technology that says, 85% of our financial success is due to our skills in human engineering, the ability to communicate your personality, how you negotiate, and how you lead. Only 15% is technical knowledge.
Sure.
And in my opinion, that's why most system implementation fail, because they haven't taken into account 85% of the people issues. They only focused on the technical. Can the system integrate? Yes, it can integrate with 3 other systems. Okay, fine. Can we save money? Yes. Can we do a report? Fantastic. Then they leave it there. 85% of the issues not addressed.
Yeah, so that was actually, sorry, my next question I had now that you mentioned bite sizes is one of the challenges we also see with customers, and we are there to help them on the journey is, yes, Bitrix is a potent tool. It's got 35 plus modules, and then each of that's got a separate module. But if you want to start implementing all of it all at once, that's when you lose your end users, because it's too much that I have to do all at once, and management thinks it's great, and then the poor end user is drowning. So yeah, that complex solution, how do you break it down, like you said now, in bite sizes with a proper project?
I think if the correct stakeholders are involved from the start, then people see that such a big change is impossible to do in one go. So you need to get the voices from the end users from the start to be part of the why. So it cannot just be a strategy that's driven by one individual and now we throw out the old and bring in the new. It has to be thought through by everyone, like in smaller groups, in smaller scrums, in smaller workshops, in the right. So if the reps have their own way of speaking, we have to sell it in their language. If the financial department, we have to bring them in and say, this is your language. This is how it will change. I find it impossible to think that it's a throw out the old, bring in the new, and it will just work. It will never work. You have to engage all the right stakeholders. And when you have a top down and the right change sponsors, they meet in the middle. It's like a crunch effect. And it's almost like a concertina. It opens and closes and opens and closes. It never ends. So when people say, do it, just do it in one go, they haven't thought through the why. They haven't answered all the right questions. And then you have to go back to asking those difficult questions that we said in the front. Why do you want the system? Exactly. What do you want it to do for you?
It's nice.
Are you willing to invest? Yeah, that's where that comes into play again.
Yeah. My last question is the post-implementation. So now we've done this whole project plan. We've had all the change agents involved. Now this is done. Very nice. Everybody's happy. So how do you maintain that? How do you keep that enthusiasm and engagement into a process that took a lot of hard work, a lot of money, so it doesn't go all flat?
I've seen in my change coaching interventions, we have three things that need to happen to embed and sustain. You have to implement a coaching management style where people look at goals and strengths and skills and tools, so their language changes. Then you have to implement a peer coaching environment where I will assist you to see what it did for me. So nobody tells. Some people take a bit longer. So they're on board, but they're scared. So if you have a peer coaching buddy that says, I've got you, I become your coach, I become your champion, then I've got your back. And then lastly, if we start to manage up, so now the end users need to manage up to say, how do we align our goals with our manager's goals? How do we communicate what's happening on the ground? How do we communicate what is not working? How do we identify risks and mitigate them before they spin out of control? So now when you start managing up correctly, you change the environment. And in our leadership program that we implement, we follow a specific order. So lead self, lead others, and then lead change. When you are self-aware and I am mastering the following, I can lead others through the process. Even if I am a leader without a title, I lead because I've embraced the system. I lead because I'm passionate about what I do. Then I lead the change. We can't do it the other way around. We can't lead change, but we haven't lead others or self. So to create focused change, we need to have intersection on leadership, on skills, and on the right structures. And if that happens, we can sustain. And we can go right back to the end and we could say, okay, how do we embed and sustain and maximize the return on investment so that the strategy, or when we look at the strategic objectives, we know this is an investment worth making because now we have the buy-in from everybody. So it's an approach. It's a process. It's not an event, and it takes time and investment. And often as a coach throughout this process, I'm the one wiping the tears, holding up the arms, breaking up the fights, having the tough conversations to say, now you're just being difficult for the sake of being difficult. You know? So that's what you need. But the end is so worth it. If people look back and say, how did we ever not have this as part of our lives?
Yeah, that's what makes us smile, is like this specific customer. If it, we don't know how we would have managed 6,000 leads in any other way, then we feel it's been a success. So Bitrix, but also the solution is working, because anybody can buy Bitrix and you can download, install whatever you want, but it's in terms of how you implement it, and that's where we get joy from it. To say the reps, for instance, the system we're busy implementing now, that you can see, oh, I've had so many visits about this to this customer, and then you've got the information. Else you don't know what you're doing and how you're performing, and then we feel we've done a good job. Yeah.
I totally agree with you. There's nothing more fulfilling than witnessing the success of a customer. That's why I love what I do as a coach. And something that I just want to touch on in the end is managing knowledge for the future. So what I see happening currently is we have so much tacit knowledge that is not converted to explicit structured knowledge. And when we embrace the correct system, we take things that sit in someone's head and we correctly map it in the right place and we see what works. And that is truly knowledge is power, and managing it for the future. So if we have the right system in place, it's so easy to onboard new reps. It's so easy to then generate more and to build this business out. So you not only, you just implement one thing, but you see the success in the long run for the entire business, and it touches on everything.
Yeah, one of the challenges we also face, and we try and help customers, is, okay, we need to use Bitrix to manage our sales process. Great, Mr. Customer, what is your sales process? No, this one emails that one, and then this and this and this happens, and it's, how can I implement something that's not plotted? So I've made a simple Excel template, because I'm still even not a guru on Visio yet, to just put your stages, what's happening where, and that's when you see the gaps. Even with our own processes, we're plotting everything now, and then you'll see, okay, there's a disconnect from 2 to 3. Whilst if you just have it in your head, like you said, and then you've got that knowledge to give to the whole team. There's someone new, we get a new support agent. What's the support process? Okay, you can either read it or look at the visual diagram, and then you're supposed to know what to do, and it gives them a bit of a comfort.
Absolutely. So the most successful companies that I work with have embraced a knowledge management leader, a vision for the business, because there's so much leakage. And one would think now that we have all this technology, we would capture it better. The opposite happens. And now in the times that we live, we talk less. We have meetings. We schedule meetings to have meetings. We don't follow through. We communicate wrong. So we have to change. It's a paradigm shift completely. But as long as people know it's possible, because we asked the right questions from the start and we identified the why, then it's not mission impossible. Then we can achieve it, definitely.
Yeah, so to summarize from my side is, if it's a big or a small change, a change is a change, and it's a challenge. So one of the partners in, I think it's in Russia, they implemented a Bitrix now for over 100,000 users. So that's humongous. That's big. Or if I take one of my customers, that's a small business and they're only 3 users. Whether we start implementing it there, it's also a process of change that's needed. And we've seen it internally also as we grow. In the beginning, with just being 3 people, it's okay just to have a simple process and you know what I have to do. And then as the team grows, we've realized, okay, we need these systems in place. So, and that helps us a bit to follow the correct process. And we grow and learn every day.
Absolutely. That's part of the journey.
Yeah. In closing, from your side.
It is always difficult for me to break the news to people that it's not a quick fix. So I rip the plaster off immediately. So it is refreshing to work with a company like yourself that understands the challenges and actually ask the clients for feedback. Because when you build that relationship, you share the learnings with your other clients, and to be part of this international family where you can learn from other companies, have an international view. It's just fantastic to up your cultural intelligence and apply those learnings. So I'm very stoked to be part of this collaboration, and I wish you all the success with your great business going forward.
Thanks very much. Thanks. What we'll do is you can post some comments on this video if you are interested in having a chat with Anneleen, maybe to get your changes all in line. You're welcome to put it in the chat, and then we'll put you in contact with Anneleen. Thanks very much, Anneleen, for your time and your knowledge, and we'll keep the gears going in terms of change, and we'll definitely chat again.
Thank you very much. It's lovely chat. Thanks.